everybody. Welcome to Will and Drew's Gaming Retrospective. You're listening to episode 41 for the week of September 8th, 2019. I'm your host, Drew, and I am joined by the Moscow Mule, Will.
3 too many, my friend. 3 too many.
Oh, man. You know what? Like, I'm drinking a coffee right now, but I would rather be drinking 3 Moscow Mules, let me tell you.
I tell you what, man, like when you've had a long week, whether it's good or bad, nothing beats like a nice mule.
Yeah, you know, that's a drink that I'd never order, and I always enjoy it anytime I have it.
Yeah, I think it's really refreshing. You know, it's got some like, it's kind of like a Sprite. It's like a hard Sprite in a way. Like it doesn't really resemble like lemon or lime, but it's the closest thing I can think of that you could kind of explain this drink to somebody. It's kind of like a ginger ale, maybe a hard ginger ale or a hard Sprite, even though it's ginger beer. So I don't know, maybe ginger ale. Let's go with that.
I like ginger ale.
Who doesn't? There's not too many people that don't.
I'm sure there's like that one person that associates ginger ale with like being sick.
Yeah, it's funny because I think a lot of people request one like when they feel nauseous, but like, here's my question. Do they really contain ginger? Because it doesn't seem like they do.
No, it's like high fructose corn syrup.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't see ginger on the ingredients, and I've had like so many arguments with people where like, dude, like, I'm just telling you, man, like it's made with real ginger. It's like, yeah, but dude, if it's not on the ingredients list, I'm pretty sure it's not in there.
Yeah.
But hey, if that's what makes you feel better, go for it.
Sounds good to me.
Other than that, I am well.
Yeah, everything's good. Doing good.
I'm well, man. I was snacking on an apple and some British chocolates.
Some crunchy chocolates.
Some crunchy. And yeah, I think we have a really good episode ahead of us here. We got some interesting topics to discuss. We have some great mailbag questions. And I'm excited to, speak on our Bastion adventure as well. So
I'm not going to lie to you. I've had zero time to look at the mailbag. I published the shout out this morning at like 8:30 in the morning, and then I've basically been in the dark until about 8:30 this evening. And it's, 9:20 right now when we're recording on Friday. So I really have not read these.
Yeah, I haven't really either. I skimmed them over, which is not a good thing because as most of you guys know, including especially the people that leave us the questions, these are not simple questions. These are questions that require a lot of thought, a lot of review, and I think that we're kind of in the crossfire here, because we have not reviewed these questions. So we could be in a stump vendetta kind of situation here if we're not careful.
It does seem that way. Well, let me just get some business out of the way first, and then we can get started. Thanks, everybody, for downloading. Hit that subscribe button in your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, or whatever else is out there. iHeart Radio? I don't know if we're on that yet. Maybe we are. Who fucking knows? We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at WDGRPodcast. It's at WDGRPodcast. You can follow me at ScienceStorm. And Will, how can they follow you?
Will_gear.
Excellent. And we are shouting in real time at Puxor, who keeps asking questions, even though the mailbag is closed. But we'll get to that in a moment. First up, a late addition to last week's from YMMOC. God damn it. Tell me how to say your name. It says, how important is holistic world building in a game to you? He's been playing, it says, I've been playing Cave Story, and each individual level feels very disconnected from the last. Find it incredibly irritating, because it's meant to be an island, a place, but instead it feels like a collection of individual levels. One of the strengths of the games, like Prey and Dark Souls, or Metroidvanias like Hollow Knight, is how well the world flows together. Each area bleeds into the next. Is this sort of world design something you look for in video games, or do you not really care? For me, that's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first part of the question, unfortunately, I cannot relate to. I mean, in terms of holistic world building in a game, I can't really think of anything that I own or played that involves that particular aspect. I mean, what's your take on that particular sentence there, Drew?
Well, I mean, I think he's just trying to, put a term to everything else that he's describing, like having levels and things that kind of flow. Like think of like BioShock, for example, when you're going from one area to the next, there's like a natural flow to it. It doesn't just jump you in. It's not like going from, an above ground level in Mario to an underwater world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I can
So
relate to like what he says about Dark Souls here. I know he references that, and
mhm.
that particular game, especially the first one, and he may know this as well as other folks listening. Dark Souls is renowned to have like one of the best connected worlds like ever. The first game primarily, whereas the second game and the third game, and even Bloodborne and stuff like that, the world isn't so connected per
Mm,
se. Dark Souls 1 did an amazing job creating a world that is very vast, but at the same time very connected.
mhm.
Whereas Dark Souls 2 was notorious for having a very disconnected feeling in terms of the world. So I can relate to that
Do
for sure.
do you think that like the disconnection of worlds in Dark Souls 2 like added anything to the game? Like was it like an intentional thing to create kind of like unease, or is it just poor design?
I wouldn't say it's poor design, even though a lot of folks felt like it was. I personally loved Dark Souls 2, and I didn't really like. I mean, I saw the disconnect there, but it wasn't like a game breaker for me.
Mm,
Um, I have a lot of reasons why I love that game, but yeah, I think overall, I think I understand the question better now, and I think my answer would be it's not hugely important. If it's super connected, great.
mm.
But if there's some disconnect, then I still feel like the gameplay is worth playing, and there's a lot that I love about the game. Then having a world that's super connected is not a huge deal for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think a great game transcends that sort of thing. Um, but at the same time, too, I like to have some flow where everything kind of feels natural. And even if it's like level one, level two, level three versus like an open world game where things just kind of naturally flow into each other, I like to have some sort of sense of progression, from one area to the next.
Sure. Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Vortex says Gears 5 is out, so I'll be on that for probably a long time. Just a side note, poor Vic. Right now, Optimum, his cable provider, has a outage,
Oh
and
no.
and on top of that, Xbox Live is down. So,
Oh geez.
yeah, this poor kid cannot play Gears 5. Um, Press F for respects. I'm sorry, Vic. Uh, he says it's been out since last night, but obviously day one server issues plagued the launch. I'm amazed at how they never have enough servers or shit ready for a big game like this. I feel like this happens for every big game now, and it's ridiculous. They did a
Mm.
server test They did a server test a month ago, and I mean they should know how big of a launch it is. And I feel like the company's always effing shortchanged, and then are left scrambling trying to get shit working right. It's so common now that I consider the week after the official release date as actual release dates now. Gone are the days of taking a launch day off to play a game. Now it's taking a day next week off to play it instead. Also, this is supposed to be early release for Game Pass holders. So much for quote early release. What are your thoughts and how do you guys react / handle new major releases? Well, any thoughts on that one?
100%. I think this is one of the best questions I think we've ever received because it's
Mm,
so prevalent in terms of like how games have been for actually quite some time now. I mean, Vic can remember the days of Battlefield 3 and even Battlefield 4, like when those games came out. Anything that's basically multiplayer nowadays, like he really just said it best. Like you cannot play this game day one. Like it's so often now that like a game comes out like this and the multiplayer is either broken or it's just like not ready.
right.
It's just plagued with fucking bugs, or it's got a bunch of like server issues or maintenance shit going on, and it's I don't know, man. I feel like Vic really like nailed it with this. There's not much
Mm,
to add besides the fact that he's just right. And it's really unfortunate because I don't think there is a really good excuse here. Like it's hard to um, have empathy for some of these companies, whether it's a server-based thing that they're using. But either way, like this is a giant title, like Vic said, and this game should be ready day one. And I think that it is becoming very unacceptable at this point that this kind of shit was going on when BF3 came out, and it's still going on now. And BF3 came out in like 2012 or 13, I want to say.
Yep.
So actually, I think it might have even been earlier than that. And the fact that it's still going on now, I 100% can agree that it's unacceptable.
Yeah. I mean, all you have to do is go back and listen to the episodes where I was talking about the Anthem demo and then the Anthem release. And I mean, that pretty much sums up how I felt about, trying to get this, day one game going, and I was fortunate enough to be in a spot where I didn't have to take off time from work. I didn't waste a sick day or a personal day or whatever to enjoy this game. And I think it's just part of the territory. I don't want to justify a poor launch like this. Like, there's no justification for it. And, no matter what happens, these companies need to be better prepared. But I also think that no matter how much preparation you do, there's always going to be not enough. They could have 1,000 servers online and they might need, 1,500. Or, maybe they encounter another issue that's unrelated and that they didn't catch in testing for whatever reason. And that's not to say it's okay, but I don't know.
It's tough because, I think you and I don't know the true intricacies of, what's entailed with, releasing a game and having it ready for servers and having it ready to the open public.
And honestly, I don't want to know.
No, I don't want to know because there's probably some complex fucking algorithm. Who fucking knows? But all I know is that, I just feel like at the, mid to end of 2019, the fact that this is still happening and you're paying, $63, $64 for a game to play, and you're taking that time off from work to play it day one or day two, and you can't. I get Vic's frustration. I really do.
Totally. And it's just going to get worse too as we move away from physical media. Everything now is download. And even if you're not downloading the game in its entirety, you're downloading patches, or, you have to install the game from a disc. And, after that downloads, then you got to download a patch for that. And it's just one thing after another. Plus, he was talking about it being an early release for Games Pass users. Well, they just had a huge, massive sale on Games Pass where you paid $1 and you could upgrade your Xbox Live to the Games Pass at no additional charge, for the entire length of it. I have this Games Pass, I think, through January of 2021. So if I have it, how many other people have it too? There's going to be potentially hundreds of thousands of people that have access to Gears of War 5 that may not have had access to it before. So the numbers are going to be staggering.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it okay, but, I think it's no longer an apples and oranges kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the consensus is that, a lot of these companies just need to put more emphasis on how they're going to handle the influx of folks that are going to be jumping online day one. Maybe that's just really what this is.
And I think they need to be accountable for it too. If there's mistakes, they need to be out in public on social media, talking about it, how they're dealing with it. They can't just, hide and not respond to the issues that people have.
Yeah, we don't want another Anthem effect.
Right. And it pains me to say it, but that game is basically dead.
Yeah. It's a tragedy.
Raffy Fatfinger says, I downloaded Monster Hunter World on PC. The new expansion just dropped on consoles today, but the PC version won't be out until January. Still fun to boot it up on PC to see loading screens that take 15 seconds on console drop to 1 second on the computer. Incredible and gorgeous game. Also seems to be on Game Pass, so we should do a game night. Game Pass is on the Xbox, that is. I would love to. I've had that game downloaded on my Xbox since the day I got the Game Pass. I have not played it once.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I'm pretty sure I mentioned on a previous episode that I bought this game due to Joe, Raph, and Joe's fiance Bree. They kind of pressured me into getting the game, and they were playing it like when it was really prevalent. Like it was out. They had it. Pretty sure day one, and it looked pretty good. Like they sold me on it, so I bought it. Pretty sure I bought it full price, digital copy, and I don't think I ever like even really fully installed it. It just kind of got downloaded and bought.
Yeah.
And that was kind of it. And I don't know what happened. I think I just got distracted with something else. But I've been thinking about it recently because I know the expansion, did just drop, like Raph said, and one thing I can note on what Raph said here, in terms of the PC version, it's unfortunate sometimes that you can still see that, PC stuff sometimes comes before console and sometimes after. In this case, it's coming after, which kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think, doing something like that on a game night would be fun because I know these guys had an absolute blast when they were playing together on like the PS4. So I need to check it out.
I still would love to put together a game night too, and I just I dropped the ball on that. I'm sorry, guys.
We'll get there. I think
there.
The reality is that we would have to get everybody to kind of just throw their schedules in like a pile, like their work and life schedules, and then we would have to work around it that way. It's just so tough. Being in your 30s, and trying to plan something like this.
Not to mention the fact that when we first originally started playing this, you and I both had very different schedules than we have now. So
yeah,
that doesn't help.
We'll get there. We'll make something work.
Hopefully. Pucksaur says, I'm playing Astral Chain mostly, occasionally firing up Mutant Year Zero, although I'm still in a situation where I either lose a key battle or the game crashes. I know that y'all are ostensibly playing Bastion, and with a number of recent releases, I noted others in the gaming spheres discussing the trope of the silent protagonist again. I love Bastion's use of a narrator as a tool to generate a compelling story that fits into the core game loop of a game, i.e. no need for cutscenes or the old classic dialogue tree minigame common in Western RPGs like Mass Effect. Since we've already had a take on the more abstract storytelling mechanics last week as far as Limbo and Grease, would you all mind sharing your thoughts on what a traditional or mainstream mechanics and tools you like or dislike for interactive storytelling? Or for a more nuanced discussion or common tools such as narrator, silent protagonist, dialogue trees, walls of text, audio logs, etc. When do they and when don't they work for you? So, bit of a long question, but basically, what story mechanics do you like and what ones do you dislike?
I gotta say right off the bat here, I wasn't a huge fan of like the little Mass Effect that I played. I wasn't a huge fan of like the whole dialogue wheel kind of situation where you have to like choose what you want to say. I've never been a huge fan of that. Whereas Bastion is just such a breath of fresh air because I know you've experienced a small portion of the game, but obviously, spoilers aside, you can obviously tell that this game is narrated. Which I think is just such a unique way of telling a story. And I just love like how he's just like, the boy gets up, he picks up his arrow or whatever. Like, and it's just really cool to like experience something like that. And you're going to experience that when we finally get to Transistor, because I'm sure we'll do a playthrough of that as well.
Yeah, I'd like to.
So it's very similar to that, except in Bastion, obviously the narrator is not talking through the controller. But I think I prefer, something like Bastion, even though like that storytelling aspect is not common at all, where you have a self-narrator or a narrator, explaining the game to you as you're kind of, or the story as you're playing. I prefer something a little bit more unorthodox. And again, I'm just not a huge fan of the Mass Effect style.
I mean, it depends on the type of game. Like, if you try to do the Mass Effect style in, a game that doesn't involve any kind of, like, character growth, I guess you could say. I think that style of dialogue tree really doesn't make sense. But when you have a character, that can be good or evil or kind of straddle the line in the middle, and your gameplay choices actually have an impact on the story, I think there's really not much else, there's really not another way to do it. But like, you can't use that in every situation. Like, it's not going to be applicable for every single game.
This is true. And with a game like Mass Effect, not to interrupt, but I just want to build on your point that you mentioned there. when you have a game like Mass Effect where you said that like it allows you to kind of choose this sort of good road or bad road, having a dialogue tree minigame, as Pucks puts it, is certainly a great asset, and it makes a lot more sense because it allows you to branch off into that choice.
And those dialogue trees change depending. Like, you have to keep in mind with the original Mass Effect trilogy, you build a character in the first game, and that character evolves from the second or into the second and third games. All the choices that you make, all the conversations that you have, pay off in a positive or negative way in the subsequent games. So you can have people in game one that you become enemies with, and by the third game, you could either still be enemies with them, or maybe they're dead, or maybe you've reconciled with them. And it's all based around that dialogue tree. And, of course, whether or not you do side missions that are to their benefit.
Which I think is a great mechanic. I love games. As much as I'm not a huge fan of the dialogue tree minigame, I do appreciate and respect the way that it's done. And just like you said, like how it actually does pay off, and it really kind of changes and shapes the way the rest of the game unfolds. I think is a great tool to have implemented in a game.
It's one of the reasons why everybody was so up in arms over Anthem too, because like we had these great expectations of BioWare based on these types of games that they've done over the years, and they just completely shit the bed with it. Other mechanics that I really like, I've been really enjoying Control's storytelling mechanics. And this is something that Remedy has done in other games too. They made Quantum Break, and they have a lot of pickups that you can find, or like collectibles or items that you find within the world. And it's usually just like a memo or maybe a video recording or an audio recording, but it gives some background and depth to the story that's not necessarily critical to what's happening, but it helps that world building.
Sure.
I mean, like, one of my favorite things from Quantum Break was a collectible that was 2 parts. You find one very early in the game, and then you find the second part later on in the game. And it's a script written by one of the scientists for a movie. And it's like the worst fucking movie you've ever seen. And this guy writes the dialogue, and he writes himself into the film. It's like fan fiction through and through. It's called Time Knife. You could actually go online and you can find this script. And if you read it, you'll fucking love it. It's hysterical. And it's like that, just that one little nugget of information. It just built this world, or it just kind of, I don't know, it just made it more real to me.
That's cool. I can definitely appreciate that.
It was just great. I'm hoping I find something like that in Control. Let's see here. Moving on. Joe Dunnitz asks if you could turn one character from any fighting game into a universal character that appears in every fighting game ever, retroactively and in the future, even showing up in things like Mortal Kombat Story Mode. Who would it be and why? And then Pucks asks why John Cena is the correct choice.
Oh my god, with the DBZ morphation there.
Well, that is hilarious, except if it was John Cena, you'd never be able to see him. But
wow, like his fucking hand in front of his face is really making him disappear.
He's invisible.
Honestly, like when I read this question a couple minutes ago, I don't know why, but like the first character that came to my mind was Hwoarang from like Tekken. Mm-hmm. He's not my favorite fighting game character of all time, but like for whatever reason, he just kind of stuck out with this question. He's definitely badass, and I think that I could envision him in like really any fighting game because he's pretty like versatile.
Yeah.
And then like envisioning him in like Mortal Kombat Story Mode, he could probably vibe into that. I'm sure he has a pretty good backstory, and he could probably have some pretty crazy fatalities with, like kicking somebody's fucking head off or something. Because, for folks that know Hwoarang, we all know that he's a master at kicks. And for folks that don't,
he's a master at kicks.
Just Google him. Type in Tekken Hwoarang. It's kind of a hard name to pronounce and spell, but it's Hwoarang, I believe. but he's amazing. He's one of those Tekken characters that is kind of similar to like Eddie Gordo.
Yeah.
Where a lot of people like will choose him just because he's kind of like cool and he's got a bunch of cool kicks, but he's an incredible character. And I just remember playing him in like Tekken 5, and he's a very advanced actually. If you actually learn about the different stances that he has and like how you can fake kicks and stuff like that, he's incredible.
Yeah. I was I'm going to kind of follow along that Namco train with you, but I'm going to hit up Soul Calibur.
Okay.
I would go with either Kalik or Mitsurugi.
Wonderful, wonderful choices. Those guys are just amazing. I mean, Mitsurugi is, from what I understand, quite a difficult character to learn because a lot of people choose him again because he's cool. He's like, oh, the badass, like, alpha male, like samurai. But like if you aren't experienced with Soul Calibur and you choose him, you're going to be fucking putting out nothing.
Yeah.
Because I've seen so many players choose him like back in the day, and they don't know how to do anything because like a lot of his moves are actually a little bit more advanced than you think.
Yeah, he's got a lot of like kind of short moves. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have a lot of distance with his sword, despite having a katana. You'd think it'd have a little bit more length to it, but a lot of his moves are very short, kind of like close range. And then he's got his kicks as well too, which kind of add a little bit of length to it. So he's kind of a like just the entire time you're playing as him, it's just kind of a range thing. And similarly with Kalik, but in a different way, where with Mitsurugi you kind of want to get people kind of in close. With Kalik, you want to keep them off of you.
Mm-hmm.
But both those characters, man, like Soul Calibur 1, I gravitated to Kalik immediately because he uses a staff, and the staff was my favorite weapon when I was doing martial arts. And that was something I remember like just wanting to do. Like he had that kata in the attract mode, and I just wanted to learn that kata, and I never did, but it was always in the back of my mind. One of these days I'm going to learn it. And I just stuck with him. I got really good with him, and then like I started needed a second character, so I moved over to Mitsurugi because samurai, right? Same kind of thing as you were just saying. And those two characters are just the epitome of badass in my opinion. Just no matter how you slice it, they're fucking great.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, like, Maxi is another one. Again, he's chosen a lot because he's cool and he's got the nunchucks and everything.
Super hard to use.
But very hard. I mean, like, you have some folks that can certainly button mash with him, but at the same time, again, if you really dive deep into his moveset, he's similar to Huarang, where he has a lot of different stances, and, he's got a lot of fakes. Like, you can do, like, a lot of the the nunchuck stuff where he doesn't really do anything. And, but yeah, when you really know how to use him, like high level maxi play is, one of the most amazing things you could ever see.
I've been really itching to pick up a copy of Soul Calibur 6, and one of these days I'm going to do it. I'm not going to play it online because fuck that.
Yeah, you'll just beat your fucking brains out, or you're going to break something.
Pretty much. So, that's it for the mailbag. Thanks to everybody who sent questions in. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to be a part of the fun, join our Discord room. There's a link in the show notes, and you can let us know what you think about previous shows or whatever's on your mind. Let us know what you're playing and all kinds of cool stuff. So, what have you been playing, Will?
Not a whole lot. However, I'm proud of the fact that I have started Bastion. This is a game that you and I have discussed that we've wanted to play together. It's kind of our next sort of indie playthrough, if you will. And all I can say, man, is I'm so happy I did. It's an amazingly gorgeous game, like Raph had mentioned, I believe to you. And it's a game that I think I was like more than halfway through with at one point, and I restarted for the sake of our playthrough. And again, I'm just really glad I did. It's a really, really special game, and there's a reason why it's done so well over the years, because it really is just that unique. It's got the narration as you play, which is very different than most games, and the fact that the world is kind of unfolding before your eyes, like as you're kind of like walking through, and you can kind of see things kind of coming together as they're being sort of rebuilt. Is another cool element to the game as well. So I'm thrilled that we're taking the road to play this.
Yeah, I mean, I have an interesting relationship with this game. I have it on the 360, I don't remember if I bought it or if it was like a Games with Gold. I feel like I probably bought it because I've had it on the 360 for a very long time. And I don't remember why I stopped playing it. I know I tried it. I something about it just didn't stick with me at the time, and I think I played it for maybe half an hour. I never gave the game its justice. Like I never even gave it a chance. So when I picked it up on the Switch for the great price of $2.99, I really wanted to make sure that I committed to playing the game because, you know, I've heard people, yourself included, talk about this game before and you know, just express immense love for it. And I have to admit, like, when I first started playing it again, I think I kind of immediately saw why I stopped playing it the first time. There were things about it in the beginning that I really don't like. I think the whole thing where you can fall off the edge of a level is kind of absurd. But, like all right, so I know there's a lot of love for the narration. I'm on the fence with the narrator. I don't love him, but I don't hate him. I find him a little annoying. Like, I just, he doesn't, I feel like it's like Peter Griffin running around with the music playing behind him every time he takes a step. You know what I mean? Like, I think the narrator is just a little too much. I think if they dialed it back by maybe 25%, it would be a little bit better. But it's not enough to ruin the experience. Like, I want to make that clear. Like, I
would stick with it. Again, not to interrupt, but I would stick with it just because I'm pretty sure I felt the same way. Like when I started the game to begin with, like way back, because I'm pretty sure it came out in like 2011. And I remember like watching videos and stuff. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like,
yeah.
And then I remember like when I played it for the first time on PC. Actually, it was a Humble Bundle that Raph gifted me. I felt, again, on the fence with it. I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And I think that for a lot of folks, it feels like a little bit different because it just simply is different. And it's so unique because, like, not many games do it that way that, like, it becomes almost like a slight turnoff and you're like, immediately on the fence. But I think when you stick with it, it starts to grow on you. And then you start realizing that it's actually a huge part of the game. So I would suggest, based on how early on you are, stick with it before you make that final judgment.
I've gotten, past that area. So I'm the narrator where I'm at now is a little bit more bearable. I have gotten to the Bastion and I've done some of the levels. And okay. I like the idea of having like this hub that you go to and then you kind of go out to these different sectors, you beat them, you get your, I can't remember the name of the thing, but it's like some kind of
proving grounds.
No, the things you use to build stuff.
I forget now. I mean, like you put the little like shard or stone thing in the middle, and then you unlock more capabilities to build like the distillery and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, whatever that thing is called. That's something that, like once you start going out and getting those things, I feel like the game does kind of hit its stride. And I think it's a shame that I really didn't give it an opportunity back in the day. Because I think if I got to that part, I probably would have felt the same as I do now. It is enjoyable. But man, this is a tough game.
Yeah, it gets pretty challenging, man. Like it's funny because like you'll be kind of relaxed in the beginning. And you're like, all right, I got my hammer and I can do this spin. And then I've got my bow and I've got this like war sword and stuff. And like you start like, getting upgrades pretty quickly. But then you start running into some areas where there's like a fuck ton of enemies and like, you're like overwhelmed. And then you're like, fuck, like, do I use my hammer? Do I use my bow and arrow? Do I use, the war sword or whatever the fuck it is that you have? Mm-hmm. You have to kind of make these choices on the fly. And the game certainly tests you. And definitely challenges you in a lot of ways because you'll have like 3 guys with hammers that are charging up and hitting at you, and then you've got those like weird little like comma looking fucking enemies that are like attacking you from all fronts. So it certainly keeps you on your toes. And then you've got like cannons launching at you. So
Right.
there's a lot going on. And like, there's certainly a flow that you have to start developing. But once you get that, it becomes quite rewarding.
Yeah, I'm still trying to find that flow. It's taken a little bit of time, which is fine. I'm not expecting to get it all at once. But like when those battles start getting like really hectic, I do kind of feel like the game can get a little bit cheap. First of all, with the ability to like fall off the side of the level. Like it's one thing, like there's this one section that I went through where the level is falling apart behind you as you walk. And you're fighting, at the same time. And I think that's cool because you're being pushed forward and you have to make choices about whether to stand and fight or to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that part. But then, like, I'm just rolling around in an area trying to defend myself, and, like, I just keep falling off the side. And then there's these other enemies that juggle you into the air, and no matter how many times you recover, you still end up getting juggled again and again. And I feel like there's a lot of cheapness in this game, in those types of spots, and it's not really addressed as far as I could tell.
I think I recall that section. It was fairly early on, and I'm pretty sure that when that was happening to me, I had to kind of like remove myself from that area, and then I'm pretty sure I used like the repeater or whatever, and I was just like knocking dudes from like kind of like the like off to the side, so that way I wasn't getting like clobbered.
Okay.
So like I think a lot of it relies on like what I call like raw, like organic strategies that like the game doesn't really provide. You just have to kind of think like, all right, well, I'm fucking getting clobbered here, so like maybe I should just like try coming back, or maybe I'm not ready. So I think a lot of it is just this organic reaction that they expect you to have. But I feel you on that. Like there's certainly some moments where you're like, I don't know how else to do this.
Right.
But I think it's so early on. Just keep plugging away, and I'm going to do the same, and we'll kind of see where it takes us. Because, like I said, I haven't beat this game yet, so I'm kind of curious to see what unfolds later on.
Yeah, I mean it's been mostly enjoyable. I'm looking forward to finishing the game. And I'm playing a little bit here and there. I think I've only put in about an hour and a half so far. I had traffic has been like an absolute disaster going to work and back this week.
Mm-hmm.
Today was the only day that it hasn't been. So I was able to play for about half an hour before my shift started. And other than that, I think I maybe got like 45 minutes at home before I like fell asleep on the sofa.
Yeah, I think the music's kind of cool too. Like at one point, I was in this section and it's like da 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 da, and it's just kind of like this. It's kind of interesting. I don't really know like how to explain the soundtrack. It's very like
Tribal.
It's like very dramatic, I guess, like would be the first word. Like I can't really compare it to like really any other game. It's quite unique, but at the same time, it's not like bizarre either. It's just kind of like this sort of, it's got like I don't know. It's got like a sort of cadence to it. Like there's like this, I don't know, man. I'm having a lot of trouble like describing the soundtrack, but it's good.
Yeah. I mean, I've been playing on mobile, so not mobile. I've been playing handheld.
Sure.
So my experience with the soundtrack has been
fairly minimal.
Yeah, I mean, usually when I'm playing the game, I'm kind of playing it on a lower volume. Whenever I'm playing handheld, I tend not to have the volume cranked because if I'm playing handheld, I'm usually around other people, and that could be a disturbance. So like, I'll play in bed while Nikki tries to sleep.
Sure.
And trying not to be disturbing.
Yeah.
It hasn't offended me, but I couldn't tell you anything about it either.
That's fair. Yeah, give it a little bit more time. We'll circle back to that next week.
Sounds good. Man, I've been playing a lot of stuff, just not for long lengths of time.
Fair.
So Monday, I see here. Yeah, I think it was Sunday. I came across a sale at Target for Control for 25% off on the Xbox.
Okay.
So I ended up getting that for $40, and then Nikki and I just wanted to have like, we both had the day off for Labor Day, so we're like, let's just hang out and play video games. Like, this is her idea. Like, yeah, that's a great idea. I want to play Mario Kart with you. Is that cool? And she's like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm like, good. I need to buy it. Can I have $60? So we went to Target and we bought Mario Kart, and I picked up Control, and we played Mario Kart 8 Deluxe on the Switch basically for like 5 hours on Monday.
That's a pretty good session there, guy.
Yeah, we had a good time. We had like a lazy day. We made like we made nachos and just had some fun playing Mario Kart. We played a ton of levels on it. Fun game. The Joy-Cons are not the best for that game. I could see the appeal for having that wheel attachment.
Yep.
But I really don't want to buy that, so I'm just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, Lauren and I picked those like little wheel contraptions up quite some time ago, and they're okay. They're actually a lot smaller than you think. Like, if you don't examine these things before you buy them, like, you can literally, especially for guys like you and me, like, we could take one and put it in like one hand.
Really?
And like, yeah, oh yeah, like they're small. Like, you could just grab it with one fucking hand and literally just like put your hand out like Magneto and just, go back and forth with it. And it's like, it kind of ruins it because like, since it's so small, like what's the point of having a wheel if you're going to like,
Yeah.
It's like taking like your cell phone, turning it horizontally and then like using it as a steering wheel. Like it's so small that it just kind of takes away from like the feeling of it. However, I could see why it is because the Joy-Cons are so fucking small to begin with that they probably went with that kind of approach. But it's helpful if you want to, not hold like a miniature Milky Way Midnight to, play your fucking Mario Kart, because that's pretty much how small this thing is. And, again, for folks that don't have a Switch, like, just understand this is a small, like, cutesy little system. Like, just understand that, like, when you buy this thing, it's small. Like, I remember when I got it, I was like, damn, like, these buttons are really tiny. And for guys, like, again, like you and me that are just kind of a larger guys with big hands and stuff, it's a little bit, like, overwhelming in the sense of how small it really is. So,
that actually brings up something that I kind of meant to talk about with my first review of the Switch, because the system itself, I feel, is deceptively large overall. Like, when I'm holding the Switch, in handheld mode in my hands are farther apart than they've ever been for any handheld console, and it's a very bizarre feeling.
That's you're 100% right.
But then you take off the Joy-Cons and you separate them from that big ass screen, and they are like the size of my pinky finger.
Yep. Yeah, they're just minuscule. Just kind of picking up the Switch right now and just looking at it, like, it feels great, like, when you have everything connected, and you're right, like, it is certainly kind of far apart, and you get used to it. But I remember you mentioning, I think in Discord, that the Joy-Cons kind of hurt, and they do, because the way that the actual thumbsticks are designed is they do have like these little grooves and like, stuff on them, and over time, like when you use them for an extended period of time, it kind of has like a weird fatiguing effect on like your thumbs.
Yeah.
And I think it's just because, I don't know, like it's just the way that they're designed, and like the buttons are fine. But yeah, like when you break those Joy-Cons off and you start turning them horizontal to play games, it just feels like so, I don't know, man. It's just so like small.
It's not natural. It's not
natural at all. Like, you really feel like you're taking something that's like not meant to be like used that way and then using it that way. Like that's the only complaint I have about the Switch, but luckily I'm not in that position like ever. Because I don't ever fucking take them off for like anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a once in a while kind of issue. And for me, I'm willing to put up with it once in a while. Like if it's a choice between playing Mario Kart with Nikki for a couple hours or, not having a cramped hand, I'll fucking take the cramped hand and play Mario Kart for a few hours with my wife,
Sure.
Like it's worth dealing with the discomfort to have that memory and that enjoyment with her and spend time with her. And I guess that's really what it boils down to with the intention of the Switch altogether is like, you know, they want people to be able to play together easily. And the Joy-Cons accomplish that, but otherwise they fucking suck.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because like if you examine the Switch and you think about like the accessories, right? Like you could obviously make this thing like a lot easier, just fucking take the cheap road out and get 2 Pro controllers and call it a day.
Yeah.
But like at that point, like, are you like changing the dynamic of how this system's supposed to be? And I think in a lot of ways you are. You know, I have one because I feel like it's necessary for games like Bayonetta 2. Like, there's no way that I'm playing Bayonetta 2 on the Switch. Like,
right.
I'm not doing it. Like, that game is hard and it's fast-paced, and I'm not going to be comfortable playing with those things even just, you know, connected to the actual screen. So there are some games that I believe that it's quite necessary. But yeah, it's an interesting system. You certainly have to find out what works best for you, and you know whether the Joy-Cons are worth removing. And you know, you have people like Vic too that remove them and then they play them vertically. Because I'm pretty sure he's used both of them in each hand vertically to play games like Zelda and quite a few other games, and I've yet to try that.
If you just take them off of the screen and you just hold them like you were holding the screen but separately, they are quite comfortable. I haven't done a lot of gaming with it that way, but like just take the Joy-Cons off right now. You know, if you still have the Switch next to you, and just hold the Joy-Cons in your hand the way they're supposed to be held, not sideways.
Oh, I've done it. I've done it just to test it out, and they definitely feel a lot better that way.
It feels natural, you know.
It does.
But then, you know, you have to be docked in order to do that, or use a kickstand. So
yeah, there's like a...
Which is fine. I mean, this is first world problems, but...
yeah, God forbid the thing's got to be on a kickstand, you know, but yeah, it's certainly one of the better, like, you know, quote unquote handhelds out there, even though it's not a true handheld. It's I think that's why it's so successful, is like, you know, it's the perfect blend of like, you know, console and handheld.
Yep. I mean,
even really though nothing else like it.
Even though most of my gameplay with it has been in handheld, I mean, it's great just being able to go dock it, you know? Like when I'm done recording this podcast, if I want to go sit on the sofa and play some video games, I can do that and not have to worry about staring at a screen that's right in front of me. So, but yeah, Mario Kart, thumbs up. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's a good time.
What are your thoughts on Control? I understand you have this game now.
Yeah, so I didn't have a ton of time to play it because you know, we decided to start playing Bastion. So I kind of set this aside for Bastion. But I put in about maybe 2 hours on it. First of all, I'm playing it on the Xbox One X. Fucking gorgeous game.
Really?
One of the best looking games I've ever seen.
Really?
Really.
That's a massive statement, my friend.
It is. I mean, the game looks like a tech demo.
Wow.
But it doesn't play like one. I mean, it plays good. It's a well done game. They took a lot of the same kind of ideas, I think, that they were going with Quantum Break, as far as like you know, the gunplay and the action and everything, and they kind of took it to the next level with Control. Very impressive looking game. The story is confusing as fuck. I'm still figuring it out, and they kind of feed it to you in dribs and drabs. You're basically how do I say this? So there's this government entity called the Federal Bureau of Control, and they're like basically like scientists that are studying like reality and all kinds of crazy shit like that. And you play a character named Jesse, who goes in the house and becomes the director of the bureau. But how you become the director is like a story in of itself, and it's not one I want to go into details because it's kind of spoiler territory. And by being the director, you have powers that nobody else has, and you have communication with beings, I guess. I'm still trying to figure this part out, but beings that are on the other side of this reality. And you're in this building called the Oldest House. And none of this is making any sense. And I'm I'm not even sure how to make it make sense because I'm still figuring it out as I go. But like it's kind of like this weird combination between like Inception and like when you go into an area, if the area is it needs to be like brought under control, you can kill all the enemies in it. You control them, take control over the area like a checkpoint, and then like the house, like it's like all deformed. All these walls are like sticking out and stuff. It kind of like goes Inception style and goes back into the way it should be.
Interesting.
Like the rooms become normal. Let's see here. What else? I don't have anything written down, so I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head.
Well, I can say that the Sun He Legend, the guy that I share a lot of GIFs, he's been sharing a ton on Control, and my God, not only is this guy capable of making almost any game look good, but I mean, it's just incredible, like what he's been able to capture, and it's certainly a great selling point for the game.
There's I guess this is like a selling point for like doing ray tracing in video games. Real-time ray tracing is some kind of technical thing, and it shows like reflections on floors and walls and surfaces in real time. So like I'm looking at the Wikipedia article right now, and it's showing like a room where I'll send you a link so you can take a look too. But it's basically like a room with the ray tracing off versus on, and the amount of detail in like the reflections on the floor and on the walls is like amplified. But it's also like when you're shooting people, like the effects of that, and then when you're throwing, like I just unlocked telekinesis, so I can grab things and throw them at enemies. How those kind of break apart and everything is very unique. This is a cool game. Remedy makes cool games, and this is definitely a cool game. It has a style to it that nobody else has, except Remedy. And if you played Quantum Break, but just felt like a game felt a little short, like so far, this is, I think, a really strong follow-up. Plus, your boy Martin Steek Anderson is one of the composers on it.
Love it. And I think I saw that on Discord or Twitter, and I was like, oh man, this is great. Because even though he's not known for that many games, I just absolutely adored what he was able to accomplish in Limbo and Inside.
Yeah, I mean, it's very ethereal, moody. I mean, it's exactly what you would expect.
Love it. I might have to check it out on like YouTube tomorrow or something.
I definitely recommend it. However, be careful if you decide to buy it. I've heard from only one source, and I don't know how reliable it is, that the game does not play well on the PlayStation 4. If you have a Pro, you'll be okay. But I was hearing somebody mention something about frame rate issues on the original.
That sucks.
I haven't had an opportunity to vet that yet. I don't know if it's true.
I hate hearing, things like this, because it makes you feel like you have to get like the latest thing, like the latest TV or like the latest console. Like, and honestly, like I have really no intentions of getting a Pro because I don't have 4K capability. So I see it as completely senseless for me at the moment. So
I guess I just did a quick search, and there's a GameSpot article talking about it. And actually, Digital Foundry, of course, has a video about the performance too. So I'm going to bookmark that for later. I want to check out that DF video because I love their shit.
Okay.
I'll send you a link for that too, so you can kind of take a look in that as well too. But right now, I mean, assuming everything works properly, I think this is a game you're probably going to at least consider picking up on sale, if not buying like reasonably soon. I feel like this is something you're going to dig.
Okay. Yeah, I'll certainly keep an eye on it.
Cool. Let's see here. What else? Fucking SNES games are on the Switch, baby.
Yeah. So are these remastered or like improved, or are they just like straight up OG games that you can just download?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're just straight up OG games.
Okay.
You need to have a subscription to Nintendo Online, which is only $20 a year. And you can get it for free if you have an Amazon Prime account. There's a special that's still going on until the end of the month. It requires a little bit of extra work, but it's free, so fuck it. And just like they did with the NES games, you have one app, and then when you open up that app, all of the games are available and already downloaded, apparently, which is pretty cool. So you don't need to be connected to the internet for it. You don't need to go in and pick a specific game. These games, their file sizes are so small, it doesn't matter. And they're just giving you, right off the bat, 20 games. And it's a pretty good list. I mean, you've got your standards like Super Mario World 1 and 2. You've got Super Metroid. Star Fox is in there. There's a couple Kirby games. And then there's stuff like Breath of Fire and Legend of Zelda's in there. Link to the Past.
Mm-hmm.
Stunt Race FX is in there. That's a game I've never played, but I've heard good things about. It's a really interesting starter list, and it's not the same games more or less as like the SNES Classic either.
That's cool.
Yeah, I mean there's some repeats, but not that many.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure the Wii U had quite a interesting library of N64, SNES, and NES games, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure Tom, one of our guests on a previous episode, was one of the only advocates I know that really dabbled with that stuff, because I think the Wii U was obviously kind of an unsuccessful system, and I think a lot of people owned it for various reasons, but not for that particular reason of downloading, those old games. And Tom, I believe that's one of the reasons why he actually bought that system, because he found and discovered that it was one of the few Nintendo systems where you had the capability of downloading a lot of those games and playing it on the Wii U.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they had, they called it a virtual console.
Yes, that's what it was.
The Wii had it as well, too. Unfortunately, they shut down the virtual console, I think, on both systems.
They did, yeah.
Recently. So it's nice to see that it came back, and I like that they're not charging anything additional. And like with the NES, they've been adding games to it constantly, almost every month. So like if you were to load up the NES app right now, there's probably, I mean, I haven't counted, but 30 to 40 games that you can play right now. Doesn't cost you anything additional. And I guess their intentions are to do the same with the SNES. There's not a schedule. Right now, the NES games have been updated like every month, but I guess they're going to be kind of shying away from that. And they're just going to update them when they update it. No set schedule or anything. But I think it's a nice bonus. It's really cool. And it has save states. So if you have a game that's like particularly difficult, you can save it. You can rewind it. So if you keep dying in the same pit instead of starting the game over, you just hold both bumpers or both triggers and you just rewind, which is nice. It's cheap, but what are you going to do? For a guy like me, that's fucking great because I suck at Mario and yeah. So
Mario's tough.
Yeah.
Mario's really tough. I challenge anybody to run through the the Mario Brothers that comes with the Duck Hunt. And see if you can just crush that without failing. And I promise you probably won't. So
there's a few people out there that can.
I know,
I'm
but
not
you're
one of
average.
them.
You're average gamer. Even if you're pretty good at most games and you can hack it with almost anything. If you're not playing that game on a regular basis, you're gonna fuck up.
Yep. No, absolutely. What else? Well, other than that, the only other thing that I was really stoked about from that Nintendo Direct was Doom 64 is coming to the Switch.
Interesting choice. I feel like a lot of these kind of just not really obscure games, but games that weren't massively successful. For example, you have I'm surprised I didn't mention this earlier, but Turok 1 and 2 were released for the Switch. And I remember mentioning those games on previous episodes, and Doom 64, I feel kind of falls into that same category, where, just a lot of N64 games just weren't that successful, and I feel as far as I know, Doom 64 was not a huge Doom hit, in comparison with the other ones.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a apples and oranges thing, Doom 64 was only ever available on Nintendo 64.
Right.
It was a wholly original creation for that system from the ground up. It features character models that were never on any other version. It features levels that were never on any other version. It has music that was never on any other version. It's Doom 64 is its own island in the Doom universe, and it's a fucking great game, and it deserves to be up there with Doom 1 and Doom 2 and it deserves to be on the same page as all the Dooms, but because it was on the N64 only, it doesn't get the same recognition because only people that would have played it on Nintendo 64 are really familiar with it. Now, I never had a Nintendo 64, but my buddy Dave did, who we had on the show, and he had Doom 64. And I remember going over his house numerous times, and we played the shit out of that game. And it was a lot of fun. So when I got my own Nintendo 64 a couple years ago, Doom 64 was one of the must-haves I had on my list, and I picked it up, and I finally got it, and I just had nothing but issues with it. Like, the first problem I had was playing it on my CRT. That game is dark. I mean, visually dark. And there's really not much you could do about the brightness. I would try to play it, and I literally could not see what I was doing.
Yeah, I think that kind of harkens back to just a lot of games from that particular time period. I remember, I'm sure we all do, the days of like having to turn your brightness up on your TV. Just because some of those games they just weren't designed that well in terms of lighting aspects. So
yeah, I mean it was tough, and I tried like changing the brightness on the game and on my TV, and it's just really difficult for me. So I kind of put it aside, and then when I got my RetroTink, I hooked it up to my LCD TV. And the brightness problem is solved. Like, I can see the fucking game now, but goddamn, that joystick sucks.
Yeah.
That controller, man.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure I spoke about the N64 controller in the past as being kind of strangely unique and cool, but in a lot of ways it still is. However, I have grown to understand and appreciate the folks that kind of hate it, because there's a lot of reasons to hate that controller. I mean, it's bizarre.
Yeah.
And like, I still mention to this day, like, there were games that came out that were literally defaulted to use the C buttons as a way to walk. And that was just so crazy. Like, I remember like the first Turok, like the default layout was, here are your yellow C buttons on the top right of the controller. This is how you walk. And then I think the shoot button or whatever, or like the trigger was the Z button, which was fine, but it just felt so fucking like weird, It just felt like you were in some kind of southpaw mode.
I used to hold the controller like I never was comfortable holding the middle of the N64 controller. I would hold the edges, and because I have like these massive hands, I was able still to reach the middle joystick.
Yeah, I think it kind of depended on the game. Like, I remember playing Ocarina of Time had absolutely zero issue.
Yeah.
Star Wars Pod Racer, I mean, that was a pretty simplistic game in terms of mechanics, but I mean, there are games that worked fine. Like, you don't feel the unusual aspect of the controller whatsoever, but there are other games that you really feel it, and that's where that controller was just kind of flawed in a lot of ways, especially having that D-pad all the way on the left. Like,
yeah,
it's like you had to kind of shuffle your hands around because there was like 3 grips on the fucking thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it was just a really bizarre thing. Revolutionary, but bizarre.
Certainly.
But man, I'll tell you right now, like, I've been kind of hedging on buying Doom and Doom 2 for the Switch, and even Doom 3, because like I've bought those games so many fucking times. So I really want to spend another $20 on all 3 of them total. And but Doom 64, I'm buying the first fucking day.
Well, I think I sent you like a Doom 2 on the DS, or no, excuse me, it wasn't the DS. I sent you like Doom 2 on the Game Boy Advance SP or something, like from Retro and Rare recently. Did you get that link that I sent you?
Yeah, I think I remember that. I have Doom 2 on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like I found a clip of that dude playing it on the Game Boy Advance SP, I believe it was called. It was like the flip up Game Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, like it was just kind of a reminder to understand and to be aware of like how many releases of Doom there were and are, like it's crazy.
Yeah, and it actually is not that bad on the SP. Like, it's a pretty decent port considering it's on a screen that size.
Yeah, I
It's
feel
better.
like
It's better than the Super Nintendo version, that's for sure.
well, that's what's cool about Doom is I feel like it's pretty like it translates well on like a lot of different systems and consoles. So um the only time that I think it's necessary to have like a pretty good quality display is with probably like Doom 2016.
Mm,
I mean, granted, it's on the Switch and it looks great on the Switch.
yeah,
It's a pretty high graphical game at that
yeah,
point, so I think you definitely want to play on something pretty decent at that level.
yeah. I agree. So we got one more topic for the show. What's good? I'll just let you take it from here. I
Sure.
don't know. I don't know how to
So
kick.
yeah, no, man, all I gotta say is the Switch is just seems to be on fire right now with all of
Mm,
their cool releases, re-releases, shit like that, and it's nice to see that Pucks had pointed out, I believe this evening, that Ni No Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch, which is the first game that came out for PS3, which I believe at the time was a PS3 exclusive, um, is now coming to the Switch, and I think that's pretty cool because that game is gorgeous.
mm,
I believe they're actually redoing it or they're remastering it, and I think that might be the Switch version or it's coming out for PS4. I'm not positive. I know we spoke about that briefly on a previous episode, but
hmm
it's cool to see like really nice, crisp looking games coming to the Switch.
Yeah.
Because like I've said before on again other episodes, the Switch is I think is a great handheld to have certain games on. So, for
Right.
example, any game that is like colorful and really pretty should be on the Switch because I think the Switch has a great display. It's miles ahead of the Wii U. And I just think that games that have a lot of colors and pack a lot of punch, it's very similar to like the PS Vita.
Right.
The PS Vita, the original version, had I believe it was an OLED display. And then
Oh
they
man, that thing is beautiful.
Yeah, I would say the PS Vita with the OLED display is probably one of the better screens that we've ever seen on a handheld ever.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately they got rid of it, I believe, due to cost reasons, and they, you know, went down to just like more of a basic LCD. But if you want to know about how good that screen looks, just ask Joe. I'm pretty sure he still has one.
I can tell you, I have my OLED Vita.
There you go.
It's fucking beautiful.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the Switch is probably like the closest thing to that, and I think that Ni No Kuni, as much as I have not played the game, I know a little bit about it, and it looks amazing. The soundtrack is stellar, um, and from what I understand, it's a fantastic game. And then you have Ni No Kuni 2, which came out I want to say like 1 to 2 years ago. I'm pretty sure that one's fairly new.
Hmm.
But apparently there's just supposed to be amazing games.
I don't really know anything about them, but just looking at the pictures on the Amazon link, um, it's like an anime come to life, basically.
Exactly. If
It's beautiful.
it's gorgeous. If you could compare it to like Gravity Rush 2,
Hmm.
one of the reasons why I bought that game is because it has that anime come to life graphical design where like it's kind of like Dragon Ball Fighters. It's the same kind of concept. There's quite a few games out there that are in existence that
Hmm.
have that sort of cartoonish anime quality, and like you actually get to like the graphics are that like it's not just cutscenes. Another
Yeah.
game that was like that was the Naruto the Naruto games,
Okay.
the Ninja Storm games. Like those have the same concept where like you're literally playing the anime.
Huh.
And I'm not a big anime fan anymore, but Ni No Kuni, just watch a couple videos of just the OG game or the re-release that's coming out, and you'll be quite impressed.
I'll have to look into it.
But yeah, it's just cool, man. It's cool to see that some of these great titles are making an appearance on the Switch, and they seem to be packing quite a punch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's System's really doing great job of getting some awesome games, and even if they're not all exclusives, like I think it's important for them to have these titles.
For sure, and I think it's coming at the right time, especially for me and you, because I mean, you just picked up a Switch,
Yeah.
I've had mine docked quite literally for a while. No pun intended, just because there hasn't been a whole lot that's been grabbing me.
Mm.
But now that it's receiving quite a lot of attention, it's certainly making me want to undock this thing, way more
Yeah.
often.
Well, I mean, since I bought it, I've basically had it in my bag, back and forth to work every day, and I don't get to play it every day, but it's with me, and anytime I have an opportunity, I'll fire it up on my break or before work or whatever, and I'll play for 20 minutes, half an hour, put a little bit of work on in whatever game I'm playing, and it's perfect for that. I'll probably fire it up again tonight when I go to bed. Maybe play Bastion. I might only get 10 minutes in, but it's 10 minutes that I didn't have before.
Sure. I mean, look, that's the beauty of it, man, is like put that thing in a sleep mode and you're good to go.
Exactly. So, man, I think that just about brings us to the end of the show.
I think so. We certainly covered a lot.
Anything else you want to talk about, or good?
No, I think I'm good. As usual, just check out, some of the things that we spoke about. Take a look at Ni No Kuni. Drew posted up some screenshots. We could always move that to a different room and, see if you can demo the Switch somehow. And
I really want to check out that Dragon Warrior. Is it Dragon Warrior or no? Dragon Quest. That Dragon Quest demo.
Oh.
I gotta fire that up, man. It's like 10 hours long.
I'm actually not aware. Did you mention this before?
I don't know if I've talked about it on the show. But there's a demo for the new Dragon Quest game, and you could save your progress. So if you buy the actual game, it transfers over. But the demo has like 10 hours of gameplay in it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's a game changer, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just kind of harkening back to what Vic said, I know he was, kind of complaining a little bit about like how there's a lack of demos for quite a lot of games. And I agree. I feel like game demos are not what they used to be.
No, they haven't been for a while.
They just haven't.
There's a lot of game demos, or at least I've seen a lot of game demos. You can filter those out too. Like if you go in the store, there's a thing where you could just show games that have demos.
That's cool. Oh God, yeah. I guess I'm getting kind of tired. Jesus.
All right, well, I'll shut up now.
But yeah, everybody, please just take some time, check out some of the stuff that we talked about, and if not, no big deal. Enjoy the show.
NBD guy.
NBD boy.
Everybody, thanks for downloading. Please subscribe. Please leave a review. Follow us on social media at WDGRPodcast, at WDGRPodcast. You can find me at ScionStorm. Will, how can they find you?
Will_gear.
And thank you, everybody, for being a part of this wild ride. We really appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
See ya. Really good is like when you take a bagel, right? Like let's say you go to like Bruegger's Bagels, just a nice bagel shop, right? And here's what you want to ask for next time you go. Get like a nice toasted bagel, maybe like an onion or an everything.
Yep.
Basic plain cream cheese. And here's the kicker. Put some fucking sprouts on that thing, guy. All right? I promise you, it'll change your life.
Like bean sprouts?
I believe they're bean sprouts.
Or is it alfalfa?
Oh, no. It's alfalfa. It's alfalfa sprouts. So take a. It's almost like a but like gross. Like
well, I mean, they don't offend me. I just never thought about sprouts and like cream cheese.
Dude, I
mean, honestly, like I don't think about sprouts ever. Like they're fine. Like if they're in something, I'll eat them. But
okay, so
I don't wake up and I'm like, gee, golly, I wish I had some sprouts today.
Yeah, and to be specific, alfalfa sprouts. But no, honestly, man, like, and you want to do it like not in the morning. I know this sounds weird, but like you want to have this kind of bagel for lunch, right? You want to have it with maybe like a bag of Ruffles, okay? And maybe like a nice pickle to kind of, polish things off, right? So toasted onion bagel, cream cheese, plain. None of that strawberry shit.
What about like chives?
Chives is fine.
Okay.
Chives is fine. Sprouts. Okay. And they might say, "What was that, sir?" And then you just want to you want to reiterate and say, "Yeah, I think you know what I said."
I'm going to try this at Dunkin' Donuts tomorrow.
Yeah, so what you want to do is if they aren't sure about what you said, whatever you do, don't repeat it. Just say, "You know what? I'm pretty sure you heard what I said." Because you don't want to say Sprouts twice because you don't want anybody in the line looking at you kind of weird. You want to just get it out quickly. So it's like, all right, let me get a toasted onion bagel, chive cream cheese, Sprouts. Sir, we don't have any cream cheese with the Sprouts. Do you want the Sprouts extra? I'm pretty sure you heard what I said. That's how you want to do it. So you want to make sure that they don't catch you. Because, like, if they're good, if they're snappy, you might be like, yeah, I definitely said Sprouts. And then you're going to get that guy next to you like, pfft. And you're going to be like, you know what, sir? Have you tried alfalfa sprouts in your bagel? I don't think so. So don't worry about what I'm ordering. You go ahead and get your 2% milk with your little fucking plain bagel. And I'll be over here with my toasted onion bagel with chive cream cheese and Sprouts. Okay? And I'm getting a bag of Ruffles and a pickle with that. All right? So if you don't have a problem with that, then that's your own doing. But I'm getting this. I'm moving to the end of the line, and I'm paying with cash. And you want to pay with cash because that's part of the Sprout process.
Gotta live off the grid, huh?
You got to make sure it's not traceable. No one could know.